It started with a single photo, blurry, dim, but powerful enough to send the entire love and hip-hop fanbase spiraling. Jasmine Washington, tears streaking her face, clutching a stack of papers outside what looked like a courthouse in downtown Atlanta. Within hours, that photo spread like wildfire. Fans were left asking one question: what just happened between Jasmine and Kirk Frost? Reports flooded social media claiming Kirk had refused to sign off on the baby's legal acknowledgement, leaving Jasmine devastated and humiliated in front of cameras. Whispers began that DNA documents had somehow been leaked online, and the numbers didn't lie. The papers allegedly showed shocking results that contradicted everything Kirk had been claiming for months. As Jasmine's voice cracked during a live broadcast, her mascara running and her words trembling, she said only one thing: he knows the truth. Fans were stunned. Some called her performance a breakdown, others called it bravery. But everyone agreed, this wasn't the calm, quiet Jasmine Atlanta had seen before. This was a woman on the edge, betrayed by the man who once promised to make things right. Sources close to the Frost family claim Rashida found out about the DNA leak minutes before it hit the blogs. She was reportedly filming in Buckhead when her phone started buzzing nonstop. Eyewitnesses say she went pale, put her drink down, and whispered to her stylist, "Not again." Meanwhile, Kirk was allegedly spotted driving off the Frost Bistro parking lot, ignoring reporters shouting questions about the baby. What made the moment even wilder was how divided the fanbase became. Half the internet demanded Kirk step up, while others accused Jasmine of fabricating the leak for sympathy and clout. And then came the twist. The leaked papers had an unfamiliar name scribbled across the bottom line. Was it a forgery? Or had Jasmine uncovered something that could destroy the Frost brand for good? As the truth unraveled, Atlanta's nightlife turned into a stage for whispers and sighs. Producers hinted that the upcoming reunion special had been completely rewritten after the DNA scandal broke. Even Scrappy and Yandy were caught reacting in disbelief during behind-the-scenes clips. No one expected the story to go this far, not Jasmine, not Kirk, not even Rashida. But now, with emotions boiling and reputations hanging by a thread, the question isn't whether Kirk is the father. It's what he'll do now that the world knows the results he fought so hard to hide. This is where the story begins, in tears, betrayal, and the sound of a woman's voice breaking live on camera as her truth finally hits daylight. In the quiet of an Atlanta morning, Jasmine sat in her car outside the Frost Bistro, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the messages flooding her phone. Bloggers had already picked up the story. TMZ-style pages were posting screenshots of the DNA report, tagging her, tagging Kirk, tagging even Rashida. Jasmine's chest felt tight. She whispered under her breath, "They weren't supposed to see it yet." Her voice cracked. The baby's name printed on those leaked papers was now the headline of every gossip page in the South. She looked at the stroller in the back seat and blinked back tears. Across town, Kirk Frost was pacing inside his office, jaw clenched, phone glued to his ear. "I told you to handle this quietly," he snapped at someone on the other end. "Now it's everywhere." He slammed the desk, his voice shaking with anger. The manager he was yelling at tried to explain that once the document leaked, there was no controlling it. Kirk hung up mid-sentence. His phone buzzed again. Rashida. He hesitated, let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then answered. What? Rashida's tone was sharp. "What is this I'm seeing online, Kirk?" "DNA papers. Your name all over it again." Kirk ran a hand over his face. "Babe, it's fake. I don't even know where they got that." Rashida cut him off. "Don't you lie to me, Kirk. Not again." At that moment, Jasmine was pulling up outside her friend Erica's apartment. She rushed in, clutching her phone, tears streaming. "They're dragging me," she said breathlessly, collapsing onto the couch. Erica sat beside her, trying to calm her down. "Girl, breathe. What even happened?" Jasmine shoved her phone toward her. "Somebody leaked the test. I didn't even send it to anyone but my lawyer." Erica scrolled through the feed, her eyes widening. "Oh my God, Jas, this is everywhere. Shade Room, Hollywood Unlocked. Everybody's talking about it." Jasmine covered her face, sobbing softly. "He said he'd claim the baby if it came back positive. Now he's saying it's fake. He's making me look crazy again." Fans were already flooding the comments sections. Some accused Jasmine of chasing attention, while others were furious at Kirk for humiliating her publicly. The Frost family name had become a trending topic overnight. Paparazzi cameras were now camped outside the bistro. When Kirk tried to leave, reporters shouted, "Kirk, are you denying your child again? Is it true Jasmine has proof?" Kirk muttered under his breath, "Man, y'all don't know nothing," and pushed past them. Sunglasses on, expression tight. Inside the bistro, Rashida sat at the corner table, head down, scrolling through the comments herself. Her close friend Kendra had joined her. "You can't keep cleaning up his messes," Kendra said quietly. Rashida didn't answer right away. "I thought it was over," she finally whispered. "I thought that chapter was done." Kendra leaned forward. "These papers, they look real." What if Rashida interrupted sharply? "Don't say that." Her eyes glistened, but she blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall in public. "I can't go through this again." Later that evening, Jasmine posted a cryptic story on her Instagram. Just white text on a black screen. "Truth always comes out." Within minutes, her comments exploded. Kirk's name trended again. Bloggers speculated she had more receipts. Fans began comparing signatures on the leaked document, zooming in, analyzing every pixel like detectives. One even claimed to have found Kirk's initials on a notarized line. Jasmine saw the chaos and sat frozen, not knowing whether to delete the post or let it ride. "Let them talk," Erica said from across the room. "You've been quiet long enough." The next day, Kirk showed up at VH1's production office, furious. He slammed his phone down on the table where producers sat. "Y'all knew about this?" he shouted. One producer held up his hands. "Kirk, calm down. This didn't come from us." Kirk's voice rose. "Every time we try to move past something, y'all dig it up again. You think this is entertainment? This is my life." But even as he said it, the cameras in the corner were rolling. Producers exchanged quick glances, silently agreeing that this storyline would dominate the upcoming season. Kirk stormed out before anyone could stop him. Meanwhile, Jasmine was sitting in a lawyer's office downtown. Her attorney, Ms. Hayes, had a calm but serious look. "We need to talk about your next move," she said. Jasmine nodded slowly, staring at the printed DNA report. "It's real," she said softly. "I didn't fake anything." Ms. Hayes leaned forward. "Then you need to be prepared for him to come after you legally. If he claims it's forged, he'll try to discredit you." Jasmine exhaled shakily. "He's already done that. He's been doing that since day one." As they talked, Jasmine's phone buzzed again, a notification from an unknown number. It was a photo of Kirk at a jewelry store, holding a small gift bag. The message read, "He's already moved on. Guess the baby ain't slowing him down." Jasmine stared at it, confused and hurt. "Who would even send me this?" she whispered. Ms. Hayes frowned. "Looks like someone wants to stir the pot." But Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that someone close to Kirk was leaking details on purpose. By nightfall, the entire city seemed to be talking. Atlanta radio stations ran gossip segments, and morning shows replayed clips of Jasmine's tearful live video. Rashida's fans flooded her page with comments like "Stay strong and you deserve better." Kirk's business partners started backing away from public appearances. Even the Frost Bistro had to shut its doors early because of crowds forming outside. Jasmine sat in her bedroom that night, baby monitor glowing softly beside her. She whispered to herself, "I didn't want this." Her voice broke mid-sentence. "I just wanted him to admit it." She opened her notes app, scrolling through old messages between her and Kirk. Some were gentle, almost sweet, him checking on her during pregnancy, sending small apologies late at night. Others were cold, distant, filled with silence where words should have been. Across town, Kirk sat alone in his car, outside a hotel, scrolling through the same messages. He replayed Jasmine's crying video over and over, each time with a mix of guilt and anger twisting his face. "She's making me the villain," he muttered. But deep down, he knew this wasn't just about the DNA. It was about everything left unsaid, the promises, the denials, the years of pretending. He threw his phone on the passenger seat and rested his head back, staring at the roof. Rashida was at home, pacing. She had called Kirk 5 times, no answer. Finally, she left a voice note. "You owe me the truth. If that baby is yours, say it. I won't be embarrassed again." She pressed send and sank onto the couch, wiping her face. Her phone buzzed again this time. It was a message from Jasmine herself. "You deserved better than this." Rashida stared at it for a long time before deleting it. That night, Atlanta didn't sleep. Bloggers hinted that Jasmine was preparing to go public with more proof. Rumors said there were text messages, recordings, and even receipts of money transfers from Kirk's accounts. By midnight, hashtags like #DNA-leak and #KirkFrostExposed were trending worldwide. Kirk's silence only fueled the fire, and Jasmine's tears had become the image of heartbreak across every social feed. And just as dawn broke, another piece of the story was about to surface, one that would drag everyone deeper into the mess than they ever expected. As the first light of dawn spilled across Atlanta, Jasmine woke to the sound of her phone vibrating against the nightstand. She blinked through the blur of exhaustion, her eyes red from crying, and reached for it. The screen lit up with a notification from an unknown Instagram account. Check your DM before it disappears. Her heart skipped. She opened the message and froze. It was a video clip grainy filmed from a distance, but the voices were unmistakable. Kirk's deep tone, calm but tense, and another woman's laughter. Jasmine pressed play again, this time holding the phone closer. Kirk's voice said, "Nah, I told her already, it ain't mine. She can cry all she wants, I'm done." The woman off camera giggled. "You cold, Kirk." The clip ended abruptly. Jasmine sat still, the silence of the room suddenly deafening. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Within minutes, she was calling Erica. "He's lying about everything," Jasmine said, voice trembling. "He said it again on camera. Someone recorded him." Erica groaned, still half asleep. "Send it." A few seconds later, Erica's voice sharpened. "Oh my God, Jas, this is bad, like career-ending bad." "If that gets out," Jasmine interrupted, "it already is out. That's what they want. They want to break me before I can even breathe." Meanwhile, Kirk's phone was exploding with notifications. Someone had already leaked the same video to a gossip blog with over 1 million followers. The caption read, "Kirk Frost caught denying Jasmine's baby, AGAIN. Listen to what he says off camera." Comments poured in faster than he could scroll. "This man stays in drama. Rashida deserves better. How many times can one dude lie?" He threw his phone across the room, watching it hit the couch and bounce onto the floor. He buried his face in his hands, mumbling, "Why won't this die?" Rashida was in the kitchen when the video popped up on her feed. She stood frozen, her cup of coffee halfway to her lips. The voice on the video left no doubt. It was Kirk. The same tone she had heard 1,000 times before, the calm before the storm. She replayed it twice, then placed the phone down slowly, staring into the distance. "He lied again," she whispered to herself. Her body went cold. At that same hour, production staff from the show were already planning damage control. "We can't let this go unaddressed," the producer said during a rushed call. "It's trending in the top 5 right now. Jasmine's emotional, Kirk's hiding, and Rashida's silence makes it worse. We need cameras rolling immediately." Another producer chimed in, "If she agrees to talk on camera, this could be the highest-rated segment this year." They started reaching out to both camps. Jasmine ignored the calls at first. But when Erica convinced her it was time to own the narrative, she finally picked up. Hours later, Jasmine sat under the harsh lights of a small set, her makeup barely covering the redness around her eyes. The interviewer asked softly, "Jasmine, everyone saw the clip this morning. What do you want to say right now?" She hesitated, glancing off camera where Erica nodded at her. Jasmine inhaled shakily. "I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't leak anything. I just wanted honesty. I didn't want him to pretend like this child doesn't exist. I've stayed quiet for years because I thought protecting his image mattered more than telling the truth. But now, I see that silence only helped him." Her voice broke as she added, "He knows the truth. And if he won't say it, the world will see it themselves." Back at the Frost home, Rashida paced the living room, watching the live feed of Jasmine's interview. Kendra had come over again, trying to talk her down. "Girl, don't let her get to you," Kendra urged. "She's emotional. This is what she does." Rashida turned sharply. "What he does is lie. Over and over. Every time I start believing he's changed, he finds a new way to drag me into embarrassment." Kendra fell silent. The air between them hung thick. "You love him," Kendra finally said. Rashida sighed, rubbing her temples. "That's the worst part." Later that evening, Kirk finally returned home. He walked in quietly, hoping to avoid confrontation, but Rashida was waiting. She stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, phone in hand. "You want to explain that?" she said, hitting play on the viral clip. Kirk exhaled deeply. "That's out of context," he said. "You think I'd really say that like that?" Rashida's eyes narrowed. "The words came out of your mouth, Kirk. What context could possibly make it better?" Kirk stepped closer. "Look, I was mad. People were recording me without my knowledge. I didn't mean it the way it sounds." Rashida laughed bitterly. "You never do." She turned away, whispering, "You never mean it, but you always do it." The argument stretched late into the night. Voices rose, things were thrown, and finally, silence fell when Kirk stormed out again, slamming the door. Rashida sank onto the couch, shaking her head. "This can't be my life again," she muttered, tears finally slipping down. Jasmine, meanwhile, had gained thousands of new followers overnight. Her live interview was being replayed everywhere. Comments were pouring in, some supportive, others cruel. "They're calling me names," she said softly, scrolling through the hate. Erica took the phone from her. "Don't read that mess. You spoke your truth." Jasmine nodded, but her face showed the exhaustion of someone who'd been carrying too much for too long. Then, as if things weren't bad enough, a new leak hit the blog: screenshots of text messages allegedly between Kirk and Jasmine from months earlier. One message read, "I told you, keep quiet until we know for sure." Another said, "I'll take care of everything once the results come back." The timestamps matched the time Jasmine had been pregnant. Fans erupted. Kirk's credibility evaporated overnight. Producers called him non-stop, begging him to make a statement, but he refused. Instead, he disappeared from social media entirely. Rashida's mother, Charlene, showed up at her house the next morning, furious. "I told you that man wasn't gonna change," she said. "He's embarrassed you enough. You need to let him go." Rashida stayed silent, staring at the floor. "Mama, I got businesses with him, a whole life. I can't just walk away." Charlene put a hand on her shoulder. "You can. You just don't want to." Across the city, Kirk was sitting alone in a hotel bar, hat pulled low, scrolling through article after article about himself. One headline read, "Kirk Frost, father again, or fraud again." He ordered another drink and muttered, "They always twist the story." A stranger sitting nearby recognized him and quietly snapped a photo. Within an hour, that picture hit the blogs too, captioned, "Kirk Frost spotted drinking alone after DNA scandal." Every move he made became public property. Days passed, and tension reached a boiling point. VH1 producers announced a special reunion episode addressing the DNA drama. Invitations went out to Jasmine, Kirk, Rashida, and a few cast members who had been vocal online. Jasmine hesitated to accept, but Erica pushed. "You need to face him. On your terms." The day of the reunion, the studio buzzed with energy. Cameras, lights, makeup artists, everyone whispering about how explosive the episode would be. Jasmine arrived in a sleek white dress, but visibly tense. Kirk arrived later, dressed in black, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Rashida came last, head held high, expression unreadable. When they finally sat across from each other on stage, the silence was so thick the audience held its breath. The host began, "We're here to get clarity. Jasmine, you've shared your side. Kirk, viewers want to hear from you. Did you deny your child?" Kirk adjusted his mic, glancing briefly at Jasmine. "I never denied anything," he said quietly. "I just wanted to be sure. I needed the truth before making things public." Jasmine leaned forward. "You had the truth, Kirk. You got the results before anyone else. You just didn't like what they said." The audience gasped. Rashida's eyes shifted between them, pain flickering behind her calm mask. "So it is true?" she asked softly. Kirk hesitated. Jasmine whispered, almost trembling, "You already know it is." Kirk's jaw tightened. "You don't know what it's like being in my position. Everything I do gets twisted, people waiting for me to fail." Jasmine's voice rose, then stopped, giving them reasons to. The tension snapped like a live wire. Producers had to step in, trying to cool things down. As the argument played out, viewers at home flooded social media with reactions. Some sided with Jasmine, calling her brave for confronting Kirk on camera. Others accused the show of exploiting her pain for ratings. Backstage, Rashida sat quietly, staring at her reflection in the mirror, whispering to herself, "I can't keep fixing what he keeps breaking." When the taping ended, Jasmine walked off stage, tears finally spilling down her face. Erica met her with open arms. "You did it," she said softly. Jasmine shook her head. "No, I didn't." "He still doesn't care." Kirk walked past them without a word, his security trailing behind. Outside, cameras flashed as he got into his car. He didn't look back once. But the story wasn't finished, not yet, because that same night, another envelope arrived at Jasmine's door. Postmarked from Miami, containing something that would take this scandal to an entirely new level. Inside the envelope was a manila folder sealed with red tape, no sender name. Just a printed label that read "Confidential Evidence, Frost Case." Jasmine's hands shook as she peeled it open. Inside were printed screenshots, voice transcripts, and a USB drive. She plugged it into her laptop, the room dim except for the blue glow of the screen. The file was labeled recording_01 MP3. When she hit play, Kirk's voice came through clearly. "If this ever comes out, I'm finished. Rashida can't find out. Not now. I'll fix it before it hits the blogs." Another male voice asked, "You sure that's a good idea?" Kirk replied, "I'm not losing everything over one mistake." Jasmine covered her mouth, stunned. She had never heard this before. Someone had recorded Kirk talking about her behind closed doors, and now it was sitting in her inbox like a ticking bomb. Erica rushed over when Jasmine called, her eyes wide. "Who sent this?" Jasmine whispered, "I don't know, but this changes everything." Erica scrolled through the documents inside the folder, stopping at one that looked like a legal email chain. It showed correspondence between Kirk's manager and a private investigator, apparently hired months ago to dig up information about Jasmine's pregnancy. "He was watching you," Erica said quietly. Jasmine sank back into the chair, her breath shaking. "He said he wanted peace. He said he wanted to move on." She laughed bitterly. "He wanted control." Meanwhile, across town, Kirk was at a closed-door meeting with his lawyer. "You're losing ground," the lawyer said bluntly. "Every leak makes you look worse. People believe Jasmine now." Kirk leaned forward, frustrated. "Somebody's out to ruin me. These leaks, they ain't random. Someone's feeding her stuff." The lawyer sighed. "Doesn't matter who. What matters is your response. If you don't handle this right, it won't just be gossip, it'll be court." Kirk rubbed his temples, muttering, "Court's the last thing I need." Rashida, unaware of the new leak, was still battling her own turmoil. Her mom had stayed over again, refusing to leave her alone. "You're too calm," Shirlene said. The old Rashida would have packed his things by now. Rashida smiled weakly. The old Rashida didn't have a business tied up in his name. Shirlene sighed. "Baby, no business is worth your peace." Rashida's eyes hardened. "You think I don't know that, but walking away ain't as easy when the world's watching. I can't even cry without people turning it into a meme." The next morning, Jasmine's leaked audio went public. No one knew how, but within hours it was everywhere, every gossip blog, every fan account, every podcast. "If this ever comes out, I'm finished." The clip replayed on loop, dissected by hosts like courtroom evidence. Fans reacted instantly, tagging Rashida, demanding answers. Some even showed up at Frost Bistro chanting, "Tell the truth, Kirk." Security had to push them back. Rashida woke up to chaos. Her phone was exploding with texts. "Girl, you heard this. Turn on the radio. They got audio now." She pressed play on one of the clips and froze. Kirk's voice, plain as day. She sat there, motionless, until a tear slid down her cheek. She whispered, "So it was true all along." Later that day, Kirk finally came home to face her. "Before you say anything," he started, but she cut him off. "Don't. Just don't." She stood up, holding her phone toward him. Audio still playing. "You said you'd fix it before it hit the blogs." "What does that even mean, Kirk?" He ran a hand down his face. "It's not what it sounds like." Rashida laughed through tears. "You keep saying that, but somehow it always sounds the same." She turned away, whispering, "I'm done defending you." He tried to speak again, but she raised a hand. "Leave." Kirk froze. "Rashida, I said, leave." Her voice cracked, but her expression didn't. He hesitated for a moment, then picked up his keys and walked out. When the door closed, she collapsed onto the couch, silent sobs shaking her shoulders. That same night, Jasmine posted another message on Instagram. "Sometimes the truth has to scream before people believe it." The post gained 500,000 likes in 3 hours. Fans flooded the comments with heart emojis and words of support. Others accused her of clout chasing. Still, Jasmine didn't care anymore. She opened her phone again and scrolled through messages from producers, asking her to appear on camera to address the audio leak. She ignored them, pressing record on her story instead. "To everyone saying I'm lying, I didn't record him. I didn't leak anything. I'm just tired of being the one who gets blamed. If he wants to tell his truth, let him. But stop asking me to protect a man who never protected me." The clip went viral instantly. Within hours, Kirk's sponsors started pulling back. One of his partnerships suspended their deal pending review. His manager called nonstop, but he ignored every call. He sat alone in a hotel suite, scrolling through social media until he couldn't take it anymore. He threw his phone into the sink, ran the tap, and watched the water cover it completely. The following day, Jasmine received a call from VH1. They were planning a special sit-down episode, just her and Rashida. No Kirk, no interruptions. She hesitated, then asked, "Will she even want to see me?" The producer replied, "She already agreed." Jasmine stared at the phone after the call ended, heart pounding. "She agreed," she murmured. Erica smiled faintly. "Maybe she's ready to hear you out." On the day of filming, both women arrived early but avoided looking at each other. Jasmine sat nervously, adjusting her bracelet, while Rashida stayed composed, her face unreadable. When cameras rolled, the host spoke gently. Rashida, Jasmine, you've both been through a lot. People want to know if there's any chance of understanding between you two. Silence stretched. Finally, Jasmine spoke, her voice soft. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't plan any of this. I just wanted honesty. Rashida looked at her, eyes glistening but steady. Honesty would have been you staying away from my marriage. Jasmine nodded. I know, and I'm sorry, but he came to me. He made promises he couldn't keep. The host interjected. Rashida, do you believe her? Rashida inhaled slowly. I believe pieces of it, but it doesn't matter anymore. I'm done trying to understand him. I'm just trying to move on. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. I never wanted to be the villain. Rashida's tone softened. And I never wanted to be the fool. The air between them was heavy with truth neither could fully face. When filming wrapped, Rashida stood and extended a hand. Jasmine hesitated, then took it. Take care of that baby, Rashida said quietly. He didn't ask for any of this. Jasmine nodded, whispering, thank you. For the first time, there was no hatred, just exhaustion. Outside, fans waited behind barricades, cameras flashing as the two women exited. Separately, but what no one knew was that another storm was already brewing, because while everyone was busy dissecting the sit-down, a third person, one no one suspected, was preparing to step into the spotlight with receipts that would twist the entire story again. A week later, a video surfaced online showing a man claiming to be the real source of the DNA leak. He sat in a parked car, hood up, face partially covered. They've been lying to y'all, he said. I worked for Kirk's team. I saw the documents before anyone else. And I know for a fact he paid someone to change the results. The video spread like wildfire, sparking new outrage. Hashtags erupted. Hashtag justice for Jasmine. Hashtag expose Kirk. Hashtag frost lies. Even celebrities began weighing in. Jasmine watched the clip in disbelief. So he tried to fake the DNA, she whispered. Erica's jaw dropped. This is wild. If that's true, this man's career is done. Producers immediately called, begging Jasmine for an exclusive follow-up interview. But before she could even respond, Kirk's lawyer released a statement denying everything, calling the man in the video a disgruntled former employee. Still, fans weren't buying it. Pressure mounted for Kirk to face the truth once and for all. He was cornered, losing deals, losing public favor, and most painfully losing Rashida. When she finally packed her bags and left the house for good, she didn't say a word. Just a single note left on the counter. You lied one too many times. Days later, Jasmine went live again, holding the DNA papers up to the camera. These are real, she said, and no matter what they say, the truth will always find light. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she added, I'm not doing this for clout. I'm doing this because my child deserves a father who doesn't hide behind lies. Thousands of viewers flooded her comments, calling her strong, calling her brave. Across the city, Kirk watched that same live, alone in darkness, his reflection faint in the TV screen. For the first time, he didn't look angry, just empty. He whispered, how did it all get this far? But deep down, he already knew the answer. Every lie, every denial, every secret had finally caught up. And this time, there was no escaping it. 2 nights later, Atlanta's skyline was drowned in flashing lights and murmurs of disbelief. Paparazzi cameras lined the parking lot of Frost Bistro as Kirk stepped out of his black SUV, face grim, flanked by security. He was there for a press conference, something he had avoided for years, but this time, the pressure was unbearable. Every headline screamed the same question. Did Kirk Frost fake the DNA test? As he walked toward the microphones, fans shouted, tell the truth, and claim your baby. He stood still for a long moment, hands gripping the podium. Cameras clicked. His voice was low when he finally said, I never altered anything. I made mistakes. Yes, but I didn't lie about that test. His tone was steady, but his eyes betrayed him. Reporters shouted follow-ups, but he turned away, walking back to the car in silence. Within hours, the internet tore him apart. Frame by frame, users dissected his expression, calling it guilt, calling it deflection. One viral tweet read, his mouth said no, but his face said yes. Another post showed side-by-side screenshots of his old interviews where he denied Jasmine's claims. The caption read, how many times can one man rewrite history? Memes flooded every feed, and Kirk's brand, once a household name in Atlanta, was now a punchline. That night, Jasmine sat in her apartment, watching the coverage on her TV, baby asleep beside her. Erica sat on the couch, scrolling through reactions. He's finished, Erica said softly. Jasmine didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the screen. the glow reflecting off her tired face. It doesn't feel good, she finally whispered. It just feels over. Erica nodded slowly. Sometimes, over is the only peace you get. Jasmine looked at the baby monitor, her voice almost a whisper. I just want him to stop pretending we don't exist. While Atlanta slept, another leak hit the blogs this time. A voice memo allegedly sent from Kirk's phone to a contact saved as JWE. The message was simple but damning. Look, if this ever gets out, we both lose. I'll send what I can. Just don't make noise. The timestamp matched the exact week Jasmine said Kirk sent her hush money during her pregnancy. This time, even Kirk's diehard defenders fell silent. Rashida, staying temporarily at a hotel downtown, saw the leak just before bed. She turned off the phone, sat back, and stared at the city lights outside her window. He doesn't even realize it's over, she murmured to herself. In the mirror across the room, her reflection looked calm, too calm. The kind of calm that comes only when a heart finally runs out of tears. By morning, news outlets were swarming outside both Jasmine's and Rashida's locations. Bloggers live-streamed from the sidewalk, narrating every move. Y'all, Rashida's been spotted leaving the hotel. One said breathlessly. She's got her suitcase. It's official. The comments exploded with heartbreak emojis and messages like hashtag Team RASHEEDA forever and finally free. VH1 executives saw opportunity in the chaos. They called both women, pitching a two-part documentary, Truth and Lies, The Frost Family Unraveling. Jasmine hesitated but eventually agreed on one condition. I want full control of my side, she said. No editing to make me look crazy. Rashida, on the other hand, declined at first. But when she realized Kirk might use the documentary to spin the story, she changed her mind. If he's gonna talk, she told producers, I'll talk to, but this time, it'll be the truth. Filming began quietly a week later. The first shoot took place in Jasmine's apartment. Cameras panned across baby toys, folded clothes, and the DNA papers pinned on her fridge. She sat on the couch, speaking slowly. I didn't want to destroy anyone's marriage, she said, but I also didn't want my son to grow up invisible. People think I did this for fame. If fame is what I wanted, I could have gone live the first time he denied me, but I stayed quiet, hoping he'd do the right thing. He didn't. Meanwhile, Kirk filmed his segment at a private studio. He looked thinner, tired. I made choices I can't undo, he said. I hurt people I care about, but I'm not evil. I'm just human. The producer, off camera, asked, do you regret denying Jasmine? Kirk looked away, jaw tightening. I regret how I handled it, but I still don't believe everything she says. When the interviewer asked if he'd take another DNA test publicly, Kirk paused. If that's what it takes, yeah. That single sentence changed everything. Within hours, VH1 confirmed a follow-up episode featuring a live DNA reveal. Tickets sold out in minutes. Fans dubbed it the Atlanta verdict. The internet buzzed with theories. Some claimed Kirk would walk away free. Others predicted the biggest reality meltdown in years. On the day of the reveal, tension filled the studio. Jasmine arrived first, dressed in cream, holding a small photo of her child. Kirk came later, looking tense but composed. Rashida sat in the audience, sunglasses on, emotion hidden behind the lenses. The host greeted both of them with practiced calm. Today, the truth ends speculation once and for all. An assistant carried out a sealed envelope, placing it between them. The audience fell silent. Mr. Frost, the host said, these results were obtained from an independent lab chosen by both parties. Are you ready? Kirk nodded slightly, his throat dry. Jasmine looked down, hands clasped tightly. The host unfolded the paper, reading aloud. Based on the DNA analysis, the probability of paternity is. A long pause filled the room, the air thick with suspense. 99.8%. Gasps erupted. Jasmine covered her mouth as tears streamed down. Kirk closed his eyes, exhaling like the air had been punched out of him. The audience broke into murmurs. Rashida stood up quietly and walked out. No words, no drama, just finality. Jasmine sobbed softly, whispering, I told the truth. Kirk looked at her, face pale, unable to speak. For once, there was no spin, no excuse, just silence. Backstage, producers buzzed with excitement. This is history, one said. Ratings are gonna break records. But Jasmine didn't care. She sat in the dressing room, holding her son's photo. Now it's over, she whispered. Erica hugged her tight. No, girl, she said. Now it's beginning. Outside, fans chanted Jasmine's name. Reporters tried to chase Kirk's car as it sped away from the studio. The streets of Atlanta were alive with noise horns, shouts, and flashes. But amid all the chaos, the truth finally stood clear, raw and undeniable. That night, Rashida returned home for the first time in weeks. She walked through the door, her heels echoing against the hardwood floors, and took one last look at the framed photos on the wall. Her and Kirk smiling. Family trips. Old memories. She started taking them down one by one, placing them in a box labeled past. When she reached the final picture, a family portrait, she paused, then left it hanging. Let him remember, she said softly. Across town, Kirk sat alone in his car again, the city lights reflecting off the windshield. He whispered to himself, "It's my son." Saying it out loud felt like confession and punishment all at once. His phone buzzed with texts from his lawyer, from producers, from everyone wanting a statement. He ignored them all. The only thing he sent was a short message to Jasmine. "I'm sorry." She read it hours later, sighed, and set the phone aside. Too late, she murmured. She looked at her sleeping child and whispered, "You don't need his apology. You've got the truth now." Outside her window, the city pulsed with noise, but for once, Jasmine felt quiet. Still, the world wasn't done talking. Interviews, headlines, memes, everyone had an opinion. But under all the noise, one fact stood solid. The baby was Kirk's, and nothing, no spin, no excuse could ever change that again. And yet, as the city began to calm, a single phone alert blinked on Jasmine's screen. A message from an anonymous account. "You think it's over? There's another secret waiting." She stared at it for a long time, heart racing, unsure if it was a threat, a warning, or the start of something even darker. Jasmine sat still, her phone glowing in the dark room, that anonymous message burning on her screen. "You think it's over? There's another secret waiting." She locked the phone, then unlocked it again, rereading it, hoping maybe she'd imagined the words. Her pulse thudded in her throat. "Who keeps doing this?" she whispered. Erica, half asleep on the couch beside her, stirred. "What's wrong?" Jasmine turned the screen toward her. Someone sent this. No name, no number. Erica frowned, rubbing her eyes. "Probably just trolls, Jas. People live off this mess." But Jasmine shook her head. "No. This one feels different. Like they know something." The next morning, Jasmine's unease only grew. She received another message, this time with a photo attached, a shot of her standing outside her apartment the previous evening. The caption read, "You don't know the full story yet." Her hands went cold. She called Erica immediately, voice shaking. "Someone's watching me." Erica rushed over, grabbing her keys, heart racing. When she arrived, Jasmine was sitting by the window, blinds drawn, holding her phone like it was evidence. "I'm not crazy," she said. "They sent a photo of me from last night." Erica took one look and went silent. "Okay," she said finally. "We're calling the cops." Meanwhile, Kirk had gone completely dark from social media. He wasn't seen at Frost Bistro, and even his friends hadn't heard from him. What no one knew was that he'd been driving aimlessly for days, sleeping in motels, avoiding calls. The weight of everything, the DNA results, the media, the fallout with Rashida had hollowed him out. Sitting in his car, he replayed Jasmine's live video again, her crying face, her voice saying, "You can't hide from the truth forever." He whispered, "You were right." But the city hadn't stopped talking. Radio shows debated whether Kirk deserved redemption. Podcasts analyzed every frame of his last appearance. "What makes this story so wild," one host said, "is that it keeps unfolding. Every time we think it's done, something new drops." And they were right, because that same afternoon, a gossip blog posted new screenshots, private emails between Kirk and a man named Marcus, discussing handling the papers before the leak. The messages hinted that Kirk had indeed paid someone to alter or delay the release of the DNA results. Fans erupted again. Rashida saw the post while packing her last few boxes from the house. She stopped mid-step, staring at the headline, "Exclusive, Kirk Frost bribery emails exposed." Her first reaction wasn't shock anymore. It was exhaustion. She put the phone down, whispered to herself, "Every day, it's something new." Then she zipped her suitcase and closed the door behind her for the final time. At the same moment, Jasmine received another message from the unknown number. This one was shorter. "Check your email." She hesitated, then opened her inbox. There was a single new message, subject line, "Truth isn't what you think." Attached was a scanned document, an older DNA report, dated months before the one that had gone public. And this one listed a different name entirely, undertested father. Jasmine's breath caught. "What is this?" she muttered. Erica leaned over, scanning it. "Wait. That's not Kirk's name. Who's that?" Jasmine scrolled to the bottom. The signature was blurred, but the initials MF were visible. Marcus Foster, she whispered, remembering the name from the leaked emails. Jasmine's mind spun. He said he hired a guy named Marcus to handle things. What if he meant this? What if the first test wasn't even his? She stood abruptly, pacing the room. He let me believe he'd done the test himself. What if he had someone else submit it? Erica frowned. That would mean the first DNA test wasn't even real. Jasmine turned toward her. And the only person who could have faked that is Kirk. Across town, Kirk sat in his car at a red light, phone buzzing again and again. His lawyer was calling now. He finally picked up what? The lawyer's tone was urgent. Kirk, whatever's going around now, about a fake DNA test, it's worse than before. They're saying you switched samples. Kirk's grip tightened on the wheel. That's not true, he said, voice low. Then how did another report surface with someone else's name? Kirk's silence stretched. The lawyer sighed. You better fix this, or you'll be facing more than embarrassment. By the next morning, the whole city was buzzing with a new theory, that Kirk had paid someone named Marcus Foster to submit a false DNA sample. Bloggers claimed they had proof. And talk shows replayed clips of Jasmine's earlier interviews, tying everything together like a puzzle. This is bigger than gossip now, one anchor said. This is deception on record. Rashida, sitting at a cafe with Kendra, scrolled through the chaos. Kendra looked up from her latte. You think it's real? Rashida didn't look up. With Kirk, anything's possible. Later that evening, Jasmine decided to confront Kirk directly. She texted him one sentence, meet me. You owe me that much. He didn't reply for hours, but eventually, she got a message back, where she sent him the address of a quiet park they used to meet at years ago, before everything blew up. That night, under dim streetlights, Kirk showed up. Jasmine stood by the fountain, arms crossed. You came, she said flatly. Kirk nodded, hands in his pockets. I shouldn't have, he muttered. She held up her phone, screen showing the fake DNA report. What is this? Kirk's eyes flickered. Where'd you get that? So it's real, she shot back. His silence said everything. You faked it, didn't you? You paid that guy Marcus. Kirk ran a hand through his hair. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Jasmine stepped closer. You just what? Wanted to erase me? Make me look crazy. His voice cracked. I panicked. Okay. I thought I was protecting my family. I thought, protecting who? She snapped. Not your child. Not the truth. She shook her head, tears burning her eyes. You let me drown. Kirk, you watched the world call me a liar when you knew. Kirk looked down, ashamed. I'm sorry, he whispered. It's too late, Jasmine said quietly. You can't fix this. As she turned to leave, Kirk reached out, voice desperate. Let me make it right. She stopped but didn't look back. You can't, she said. Truth doesn't need fixing. The next day, news broke again this time. Not from Jasmine or Kirk, but from Marcus Foster himself. In a shocking interview, he confessed everything. Yeah, Kirk paid me, he said on camera. He didn't want that test getting out. I ran the first sample myself. Reporters bombarded him with questions, but he said only one more thing before walking off. He thought he could bury it, but lies always rot to the surface. The fallout was instant. Kirk's partnerships officially ended. VH1 released a statement confirming production was on hold indefinitely. Jasmine's following tripled overnight, her DMs filled with messages of support. Rashida's new post simply said, truth sets everyone free, but the mystery of who had been sending Jasmine those anonymous messages still haunted her. She scrolled through her phone late that night, reading them again. One final text arrived. You've seen what he did. Now you'll see who helped him. Her stomach dropped. Who helped him? She whispered. The screen dimmed, and the room fell silent except for the soft sound of her baby breathing beside her. Outside, thunder rolled across the Atlanta sky. A storm beginning again, one that promised even darker secrets waiting to be uncovered. Rain began to pour over Atlanta, steady and relentless. As Jasmine sat by the window of her apartment staring at that last message, you've seen what he did. Now you'll see who helped him. The words replayed in her mind until they blurred into something darker. She thought maybe it was another lie, another scare tactic. But then her email pinged again. One new message. No sender name, no subject. She opened it slowly. Inside were photos blurred but recognizable. One showed Kirk handing an envelope to a woman outside a parking lot. Another, clearer, showed the woman's face. Jasmine's heart nearly stopped. It was Rashida. For a moment, the room felt like it tilted. Jasmine dropped the phone onto the table, breath shallow. No, she whispered, shaking her head. Erica, who had been scrolling through her own feed, looked up immediately. What happened? Jasmine pushed the phone toward, her voice trembling. It's her, it's Rashida. They're saying she was in on it. Erica squinted at the screen, disbelief clouding her face. That could be edited. Jasmine rubbed her temples, eyes brimming with tears. What if it's not? Within hours, the photos hit the blogs. Rashida caught meeting Kirk before DNA scandal explodes. Fans went into chaos. Comments sections filled with accusations. She knew the truth all along. They covered it up together. The story spread faster than any of the previous leaks. Reporters camped outside Frost Bistro again, waiting for a statement. Rashida, meanwhile, woke up to her phone lighting up nonstop. She scrolled through her notifications, confusion turning to horror as she saw the headlines. Oh my God, she murmured. She called Kirk immediately. He didn't answer. She tried again and again, until finally he picked up. What did you do? She demanded. Kirk's voice was hoarse. I didn't leak that. I swear. Then how are there pictures of me taking your envelope? She snapped. What envelope, Kirk? Silence stretched on the line before he whispered, money. It was money. Rashida went cold. You had me hand over hush money. It wasn't supposed to look like that, he said, voice cracking. You said you were paying vendors, she said quietly. You lied to me again. She hung up before he could respond. Her hands shook as she sat down, heart pounding so hard it felt like thunder in her chest. By afternoon, producers were calling both women non-stop. Jasmine refused to speak to the press, while Rashida posted a short statement on her Instagram story. Believe what you want. I have nothing to hide. But fans weren't convinced. Her comments filled with betrayal. Even those who once defended her were now asking, did you help cover for him? Later that night, Jasmine's phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. They were both protecting more than a lie. Attached was a short video file. Jasmine hesitated, then pressed play. The footage was from inside Frost Bistro's back office, filmed on a hidden camera. Kirk and Rashida sat together, voices low but clear. We can't let this get out, Kirk said. Rashida sighed, rubbing her forehead. Then what's the plan? Kirk leaned forward. I'll have Marcus handle it. Just until the show wraps. Once the heat dies down, we'll release the truth ourselves. Rashida looked at him sharply. And in the meantime, Kirk said, in the meantime, Jasmine stays quiet. Rashida looked away, whispering, you better pray this doesn't blow up in our faces. Jasmine dropped the phone like it was burning her. Erica gasped. Oh my God, they worked together. Jasmine covered her mouth, shaking. She wasn't innocent. She helped him bury me. The video leaked publicly an hour later, and the internet exploded. Rashida caught plotting cover-up. New footage exposes Frost couple's hidden deal. By midnight, both Kirk and Rashida had turned off comments across every social media platform. Meanwhile, Jasmine couldn't stop crying. All this time, she said softly, I thought she hated me because I ruined her life. But she hated me because she already knew the truth. Erica hugged her tight. You got proof now. No one can twist it. Jasmine nodded, but her eyes were empty. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted honesty. The next morning, Atlanta was buzzing again. Local radio hosts dissected the new tape like it was a political scandal. Rashida looked calm in that clip, one said. Too calm. She knew what she was doing. Another replied, or maybe she was scared. Either way, it's a bad look. VH1 producers were already in crisis mode. The documentary that had been meant to close the story was now unfinished. They called Jasmine first. You have to finish this on record, the producer pleaded. People need your truth. Jasmine hesitated, then said, I'm not doing this for people anymore. I'll do it for me. Rashida, on the other hand, refused interviews. She stayed inside her house for days, blinds drawn, ignoring the outside world. The betrayal, the exposure, the shame, it was too much. Even Kendra couldn't get through to her. They think I'm a liar, Rashida whispered one night over the phone. I built everything from nothing, and now I'm the villain. Kendra replied quietly, sometimes the truth burns down what's fake. 3 days later, Kirk showed up at Jasmine's apartment unannounced. She opened the door, disbelief on her face. You shouldn't be here, she said coldly. He looked broken, rain soaking through his hoodie. Please, he said. Just listen. Jasmine stepped aside, arms crossed. He sat down on the couch, dripping water, hands shaking. She didn't want to do it, he said softly. Rashida only helped me because she thought I'd lose everything if it got out. She begged me to tell you the truth, but I didn't listen. It's not all her fault, it's mine. Jasmine stared at him for a long time. You think that makes it better? She asked. You both played God with my life. Kirk's eyes were red. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want to make it right. Jasmine shook her head. You can't make it right. Some things don't have a fix. He nodded slowly, stood up, and walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. For what it's worth, I'm done lying. Jasmine's voice was barely a whisper. You should have been done years ago. After he left, Jasmine went live one last time. Her face was calm, voice steady. This isn't about Kirk anymore, or Rashida, it's about truth. When people lie, they don't just hurt one person, they destroy everyone tied to them. I hope this teaches someone watching to stop protecting what's already broken. She looked straight into the camera. For years, I was painted as the problem. Now the truth is out, and all I feel is tired. She exhaled slowly. But maybe that's what healing looks like when you stop waiting for an apology that'll never come. Millions watched. Millions commented. The clip went viral again. But this time, it wasn't anger driving it. It was empathy. Even those who once doubted her called it the most raw, human moment they'd seen on TV. Rashida watched the live from her room. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She whispered to the empty space, I'm sorry, Jasmine. Kirk, somewhere alone, watched the same live on his phone before placing it face down on the table. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like defending himself. He just sat, in silence, the sound of rain tapping on the window, and the truth echoing louder than any denial ever could. But as the night grew quiet, Jasmine's phone buzzed one last time. A new message, same anonymous number. You've seen what they did, now you'll learn why. She stared at it for a long time, knowing that this story, her story, still wasn't finished. The next morning, Jasmine woke to gray skies and a hollow feeling that wouldn't go away. She hadn't slept. The baby had stirred a few times, crying softly. And every time she'd walked over to comfort him, she'd caught sight of her reflection. In the dark window, tired eyes, swollen from nights of tears, a woman still trying to find peace in the noise. She turned on her phone, half afraid to look. Another message waited. The truth started before you. Check the file attached. There was a PDF document. She hesitated before opening it. The file's title read Frost Case 2012 Internal Correspondence. As the file loaded, Jasmine's stomach twisted. It contained old emails between Kirk and someone named C. Walker, referencing a prior situation eerily similar to hers. One message read, keep her quiet, same way as before. Don't let it reach Rashida. Another said, DNA results handled by Marcus again. No trace. Jasmine's hand flew to her mouth. There was someone else, she whispered. Erica, who had come by with coffee, froze mid-step. What are you talking about? Jasmine turned the screen toward her. He's done this before. The room fell silent, except for the rain outside. So this wasn't the first time he lied about a child, Erica said quietly. Jasmine nodded, eyes glassy. And Rashida didn't even know. Across town, Rashida was trying to restart her day. She had started filming again, promoting her boutiques, forcing a smile for the cameras, even as her phone wouldn't stop buzzing with mentions about another Frost scandal. She ignored them until Kendra called, voice urgent. Girl, you need to sit down, Kendra said. There's new stuff out. Someone leaked old emails. From 2012. Rashida frowned. What are you talking about? Kendra hesitated. It's saying Kirk had another baby. Years ago. Rashida's hand went limp, her phone almost slipping. No, she whispered. Not again. Kendra's voice softened. It's everywhere. Jasmine's got proof. Rashida hung up, her chest tight, breath uneven. She searched online, there it was. Her husband's name, her brand, her life, once again reduced to gossip fodder. Comments flooded in. So he's been doing this for years. Poor Rashida can't catch a break. Karma moves in circles. Kirk, who had been lying low, saw it too. He slammed his laptop shut and muttered under his breath. Who keeps leaking this? He called Marcus's old number out of desperation, but it went straight to voicemail. I know it's you, he said after the beep. You're the one feeding her this stuff. He hung up and threw the phone against the wall. That afternoon, Jasmine's phone rang from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. A low male voice came through. Stop digging. She froze. Who is this? Silence. Then, some truths are buried for a reason. The call ended. Erica, standing nearby, grabbed the phone. "We're going to the cops." Jasmine shook her head. "No, this isn't just gossip anymore. Someone's trying to scare me." Erica said, "Yeah, and it's working." Jasmine stared at the phone. What if it's not Kirk? That night, Jasmine got another email, this time with a video attachment. The sender line simply said, "Unknown source." When she opened it, her screen filled with shaky footage recorded years earlier, clearly from a hidden camera. Kirk and another woman sat across a table at a restaurant, voices low. Jasmine couldn't see the woman's face clearly, but she heard Kirk's words. "Don't worry, they'll believe whatever story we give them. Marcus handles everything." The woman's voice was softer but familiar somehow. Jasmine paused the video and rewound it, listening carefully. Erica leaned in. "Who is that?" Jasmine replayed the line again. The tone, the rhythm, it hit her. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's Carly Red." Erica's eyes went wide. "No way." Jasmine nodded slowly. "He was with her back then. That's the woman from those emails." The next day, gossip pages exploded again. New tape connects Kirk to Carly Red cover-up from 2012. Carly's name trended instantly. She went live on Instagram within hours, visibly furious. "I don't know who's digging up old lies," she said to her followers, "but don't play with my name. I had nothing to do with that man after 2013. Fans were divided, but many believed the footage. The resemblance in the voice was undeniable. Meanwhile, VH1 producers, sensing another ratings storm, announced a last-minute reunion taping. All cast members were required to attend. "We're calling it the final reckoning," the producer said in a leaked email. Jasmine was reluctant but agreed when they promised increased security. Rashida almost refused until the network reminded her that the footage would air whether she came or not. Kirk, cornered and publicly disgraced, had no choice. Filming day arrived like a storm. The studio was packed, audience restless, cameras flashing. Jasmine sat on one end of the couch, calm but cold. Rashida sat across from her, eyes distant. Kirk sat between them, silent. Carly was brought out halfway through, visibly tense. The host didn't waste time. "There have been new revelations older than any of us expected. Kirk, do you want to address the 2012 situation?" Kirk cleared his throat. "It's old news. I was young, stupid, it was a mess." The host pressed. "Did you fake another DNA test?" Kirk sighed. "It's complicated." The audience booed. Jasmine cut in sharply. "It's not complicated. Kirk, you lied." Again, Rashida folded her arms. "How many times does it take before you call it what it is?" Kirk turned toward her. "Rashida, don't do this here." She laughed bitterly. "This is the only place you ever tell the truth under the lights." The tension was unbearable. Carly finally spoke. "I didn't know anything about no DNA back then. If his name was attached to mine, that wasn't my doing." Kirk muttered. "You knew what was going on." "Don't you dare," she snapped, standing up. "You dragged every woman you touched into your chaos." The audience gasped. Jasmine leaned back, whispering, "And now everyone sees it." The host raised a hand. "So, to be clear, Kirk, did you pay Marcus Foster to alter both tests?" Kirk hesitated, eyes darting between the women. Finally, he said, "Yes." The room erupted. The audience screamed, the cast shouted over one another, and cameras zoomed in on Jasmine's tearful face. She whispered, "Thank you," under her breath, not to him, but to the truth itself. After the taping, Jasmine walked out of the studio without looking back. Rashida followed a few steps behind, both women in silence until they reached the exit. Rashida finally spoke, voice low. "You were right. I just didn't want to see it." Jasmine turned slightly. "None of us did." They shared a brief nod, no forgiveness, just recognition. That night, Kirk's world collapsed completely. Sponsors pulled every contract. The Frost Bistro was vandalized with graffiti reading "Truth Hurts." His phone filled with calls from producers and lawyers, but he ignored them all. Alone in his car again, he whispered, "Maybe I deserve this." Jasmine, back home, rocked her baby to sleep. Her phone buzzed once more, a final message from the anonymous source. "It's over. But remember, truth doesn't just free you, it exposes everyone else to." She stared at it, unsure whether to feel relieved or afraid. Outside, thunder echoed across Atlanta again, the same as the night it all began. For the first time in years, Jasmine didn't respond. She closed her phone, turned off the lights, and whispered into the quiet. "The truth can scream all it wants. I'm finally done listening." Weeks passed. The noise began to fade, but Atlanta still buzzed with whispers every time Jasmine's name came up. The scandal had burned through TV screens, social feeds, and tabloids, leaving behind the kind of silence that feels suspicious. Kirk had vanished almost entirely from the public eye, and Rashida was slowly rebuilding her image. Posting. Bright, steady clips of her boutique and makeup line. Yet beneath the calm surface, there was a strange tension in the air, as though everyone was waiting for the next spark. One night, Jasmine was sitting at her kitchen table, scrolling through messages from supporters. Trying to answer a few with polite thanks, her phone buzzed again, a text from a number she didn't recognize. Truth doesn't die, Jasmine, it just waits its turn. She froze. For a moment, she thought it was another cruel fan prank. But then a second message followed. You never asked who leaked the very first file. Her breath caught. She typed back quickly, "Who are you?" But no reply came. Across the city, Kirk sat alone in a small recording studio, lights dimmed, surrounded by silence except for the hum of old speakers. He looked older than he had a month ago, his eyes heavy, his hands restless. He opened a notebook filled with scribbles, plans for apologies, ideas for statements, ways to rebuild what was left. But each line he wrote ended the same way: "No one will believe me." He closed the book and stared at the ceiling. Rashida, on the other hand, was beginning to find her rhythm again. She had started therapy, something she'd avoided for years. The therapist asked, "What do you feel when you hear his name?" Rashida smiled faintly. "Less and less every day." She meant it. Yet even as she spoke, her phone lit up with a notification from an unknown number. The same words Jasmine had seen. Truth doesn't die. The next morning, Jasmine met with Erica at a quiet cafe on the edge of Midtown. They sat near the window, watching the streetlight flicker. "It's starting again," Jasmine said softly, showing her the message. Erica frowned. Same number. Different, same words. Erica exhaled. "You think it's Kirk?" Jasmine shook her head. "He's too cowardly to be this direct." She took a sip of coffee, voice low. "Someone else wants this to keep going." By afternoon, a new wave of posts began to circulate online, grainy screenshots from an internal VH1 production chat. The messages suggested that someone from the network itself had been leaking files to the press for months, fueling the drama to keep ratings high. One message read, "Send the folder to Jasmine's contact. She think it's from Kirk." Another, "Rashida's reaction will break the internet." It wasn't Kirk. It wasn't Jasmine. It was them. Jasmine scrolled through the thread in disbelief. "They used me," she whispered. Erica clenched her jaw. They used everyone. The revelation sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Headlines screamed VH1 accused of manipulating La Hoddle scandal. Former cast members spoke out, claiming producers had long orchestrated drama to keep the story alive. But this time, the proof was undeniable. Internal emails, voice notes, and chat logs showed clear intent. Jasmine's heartbreak had been entertainment currency. Rashida saw it too and immediately called Jasmine. The first time they'd spoken since the reunion. "You saw it?" Rashida asked quietly. "Yeah," Jasmine replied. There was a long silence. "So we were just characters," Rashida said, almost to herself. "None of it mattered to them." Jasmine's voice trembled. "It mattered to us. It ruined us." A joint legal team soon formed. Jasmine, Rashida, and even Kirk, silent for weeks, united unexpectedly. Lawsuits were filed against the production company, accusing them of defamation and manipulation. The media, once hungry for gossip, now chased courtroom updates. Fans, for the first time, sided with the people instead of the story. Months dragged on, each hearing reopening old wounds. Producers denied responsibility, claiming consent forms covered everything. Jasmine's lawyer held up the leaked chat logs as evidence. "Consent," she said in court, "doesn't include deceit." Reporters filled the hallway, snapping photos as Jasmine walked in carrying her child, quiet strength in her posture. Kirk showed up too, avoiding eye contact but standing beside her nonetheless. Rashida arrived last, poised as ever, her chin high, the weight of years visible in her eyes. For the first time, the three stood together, not as enemies, but as survivors of a machine that had fed on their pain. When Jasmine took the stand, the courtroom went silent. "I thought I was fighting him," she said, nodding toward Kirk. "But I was fighting ghosts behind cameras. They made sure the truth never fit into one story, because chaos sells better than closure." She paused, her voice steady. "They wanted tears, not healing, and we gave it to them. The verdict came weeks later. The court ruled partially in their favor: financial compensation, public apology, and the permanent removal of doctored footage. Jasmine cried quietly when she heard it. Rashida exhaled deeply, the first real breath of peace in years. Kirk just nodded, whispering, "It's done." After the storm finally passed, Jasmine stood outside the courthouse, holding her baby while reporters called her name. She didn't stop. She just smiled faintly and said, "I'm not the story anymore." That night, Rashida returned home to an empty house. She made herself tea, turned on the radio, and heard an old song playing, one she and Kirk had once danced to. She closed her eyes, letting it fade into the background. No longer a wound. Across town, Kirk packed the last of his belongings into boxes, ready to leave Atlanta for a while. Before driving off, he sent a short message to both women. "Thank you for ending it right." And Jasmine, she finally turned off her phone, unplugged the charger, and looked out at the city lights. No notifications, no no's, no more unknown numbers. Just the sound of her child breathing softly beside her. She whispered, "It's over now." And this time, it was true. The truth had burned everything it touched, but from the ashes, something rare remained: silence. The kind that means freedom. Seasons changed, and the story that once shook Atlanta slowly faded into memory. The headlines moved on to new scandals, new faces, new dramas that would capture the city's attention. But for Jasmine, Rashida, and Kirk, life never quite returned to what it was before. The truth had freed them, but it had also carved deep scars that time could not fully erase. For Jasmine, the days began to settle into something quieter. She rented a small house outside the city, surrounded by trees, far from the noise of flashing lights and gossip blogs. Her mornings were slow now: coffee brewing, cartoons on the TV for her child, sunlight spilling across the floor. Sometimes, she still caught herself checking her phone out of habit, expecting another message, another threat, another twist, but the notifications stayed empty. At first, the silence felt strange, almost unnerving, but eventually, it became peace. She began writing again, something she hadn't done in years. At first it was small notes, journal entries about what she'd lived through, what she'd learned, how easily people confuse drama for truth. Eventually, those notes turned into pages, and those pages turned into a book. She didn't tell anyone. It was just her way of understanding everything that had happened. Rashida threw herself back into work, rebuilding her brand from the ground up. She rebranded her boutique, launched a new clothing line, and started speaking publicly about healing, resilience, and the cost of silence. Fans began to see a different side of her, less polished, more human. She even started a podcast, and one of her first episodes was called "When Truth Breaks You But Sets You Free." She never mentioned names, but everyone knew what she was talking about. Still, she hadn't spoken to Kirk since the lawsuit ended. Some nights, she would scroll through old photos, not out of love but nostalgia. There had been good years, and pretending there hadn't would have been another lie. Yet she didn't regret leaving. For the first time in her life, she could look in the mirror and see a woman who didn't owe anyone an apology. Kirk, meanwhile, had disappeared to Miami. He lived quietly, away from the cameras, working on music again, the thing he'd abandoned long before all the chaos. He'd rented a small studio apartment near the water and spent hours sitting by the shore, watching the waves roll in. Sometimes, he'd write lyrics he knew no one would ever hear. Sometimes, he'd replay old videos of his kids and wonder how many birthdays he'd missed while trying to protect his image. Months passed before he finally reached out. One afternoon, Jasmine received a handwritten letter, no return address, just her name on the envelope. She hesitated before opening it. The letter was short. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to tell you thank you. Thank you for forcing me to face the truth. You were right about everything. I lost everything I built because it was built on lies. Maybe that's justice. I hope your son grows up proud of you. I'll never stop being sorry." There was no signature, but she didn't need one. She folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. She didn't forgive him, not yet, maybe not ever, but for the first time, she didn't feel anger, only closure. 1 year later, VH1 announced the end of Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta. Ratings had dropped, viewers had moved on, and even the network had grown weary of the constant scandals. The final season closed with a montage of moments that had once made the show unforgettable: laughter, fights, tears, confessions, and then, quietly, a title card appeared. "Thank you, Atlanta." When Jasmine saw the announcement, she smiled faintly. Finally, she said. Rashida, sitting in her office, watched the same clip. She leaned back in her chair and whispered, "About time." And Kirk, in Miami, saw it too. He didn't say a word. He just turned off the TV, stepped outside, and watched the sunset sink into the horizon. The sound of the ocean covered the noise of the past, and for the first time, he let himself breathe. Weeks later, Jasmine's book was quietly published under a pseudonym. It wasn't about fame or revenge, it was about truth, healing, and the cost of silence. It sold slowly at first, then began to spread by word of mouth. Readers connected with it, even without knowing the full story behind it. One reviewer called it a confession wrapped in calm. One evening, Rashida found the book in a boutique shop downtown. She flipped through the pages, paused at a paragraph that read, "Forgiveness isn't about who deserves it, it's about who deserves peace." She smiled, bought a copy, and left without saying a word. Months rolled into years. Jasmine's child grew, Rashida's business flourished. And Kirk stayed far away, building a quiet life that no one talked about anymore. Atlanta moved on, but sometimes, when the night air was heavy and the city lights blurred through the rain, the whispers still returned, soft, fading echoes of a story that once held everyone captive. And yet, in the stillness after everything, the three of them, each in their own corner of the world, finally understood the same thing. The truth hadn't ruined them. It had revealed them. It had stripped away every pretense, every mask, every version of themselves they'd created for the cameras. And in what remained in the raw, unfiltered silence there was finally something honest, something real. Jasmine closed her notebook one night and looked out her window at the quiet sky. Her son slept peacefully in the next room. For the first time in years, she whispered the same words she once said through tears. But now they sounded different, lighter. Final. It's over. And this time, it truly was. 2 years later, Atlanta had changed. New faces on the billboards, new gossip to chase, new stars rising. But somewhere beneath that glitter and chaos, the echoes of Jasmine and Kirk's stories still lingered, like an old rumor that never really died. People still whispered in beauty salons and studio corridors. "Remember that Frost scandal? That was wild." But for those who lived it, it wasn't entertainment anymore. It was history they'd survived. Jasmine had moved fully into her new life. Her book, now quietly recognized by critics, had won a small Southern Literary Award for nonfiction. She hadn't attended the ceremony, she didn't even tell anyone it was her. But watching a stranger read a passage from her work online made her eyes sting. She was proud, not because of the fame, but because she'd turned pain into something that could breathe on its own. Her son, now walking and talking, was the center of her world. She enrolled in night classes in media production, wanting to learn the very craft that once exploited her. "If they could twist my story," she told Erica one night, "maybe I can learn how to tell it right next time." Erica grinned. "Girl, you already know how." Rashida had grown her boutique into a full brand, launching a second location in Houston. She was stronger, now tougher, quieter, wiser. In interviews, she spoke about rebuilding trust and the importance of starting over without bitterness. Fans noticed the shift. She no longer chased the camera, she commanded it. In one appearance, when asked about Kirk, she said simply, "We all paid for the lies we told, some with money, some with years." It was the last time she ever spoke his name publicly. Kirk stayed out of sight, but his presence never vanished entirely. A few photos surfaced here and there, him working in a small studio, helping local artists record demos. He didn't look like the man Atlanta once loved to hate. He looked older, quieter, almost at peace. Some said he had a new life, a private one far from the spotlight. Others said he'd finally found the humility he'd lost chasing fame. Then, one afternoon, Jasmine got a call she didn't expect. It was Rashida. Her voice was calm, a little unsure. "I read your book," she said. Jasmine froze. "You knew it was me." Rashida laughed softly. "Girl, it was obvious. I've heard you talk enough to recognize your words anywhere." Jasmine smiled faintly. "Did it make you mad?" "No," Rashida said after a pause. "It made me understand. They agreed to meet just two women now, not rivals, not headlines. They chose a quiet spot at a rooftop cafe overlooking the city. When Rashida arrived, she hugged Jasmine without hesitation. "It's weird," she said, sitting down. "After all that, seeing you like this feels normal." Jasmine nodded. "Maybe because it finally is." They talked for hours, not about Kirk, but about motherhood, business, and the strange way fame makes people forget they're human. As the sky darkened over Atlanta, Rashida said softly, "We both lost pieces of ourselves in that story." Jasmine looked at her and replied, "And we both got them back in different ways." It wasn't friendship yet, but it was forgiveness, quiet and real. A week later, Jasmine received an invitation in the mail. It was from a local university, an event celebrating women in media. They wanted her to speak about truth, storytelling, and resilience. At first, she hesitated. Then she thought of every sleepless night, every rumor, every lie she'd survived, and said yes. On the night of the event, she stood backstage, heart pounding, waiting for her cue. Erica was in the front row, recording proudly on her phone. When Jasmine walked on stage, the audience applauded. She smiled nervously and began. "I used to think truth was something you fight for," she said, "but truth doesn't need us to fight it, just needs time. It always finds a way, even through chaos, even through pain. Sometimes it destroys, sometimes it heals, but it never disappears." She paused, scanning the faces watching her. "The hardest thing I ever learned was that surviving isn't the same as living. And I'm finally living now." When she finished, the crowd stood and clapped. Somewhere in the back, unnoticed by most, sat a man in a plain gray hoodie. He didn't approach her after. He just watched quietly, nodded once, and left before the lights came up. As Jasmine walked off stage, Erica hugged her tightly. "You did it," she whispered. Jasmine smiled. "No," she said softly. "We all did." Outside, the city was quiet for once. No flashing cameras, no chaos, no noise. Just the hum of cars in the distance and a sky heavy with stars. Jasmine stood for a moment, breathing it all in, the peace she had fought so long to find. Rashida posted a photo that same night, just a simple caption under a city skyline. "Growth looks good on us." And somewhere near the ocean, Kirk looked out over the waves, replaying Jasmine's speech in his mind. For the first time, he whispered not an excuse, not a regret, but a truth that came late, yet still mattered. She deserved better. They both did. Atlanta had forgotten the noise, the fights, the leaks, but, for the people who lived through it, the lessons remained. Truth doesn't vanish. It just waits. And when it returns, if you're strong enough to face it, it becomes freedom. And for Jasmine, for Rashida, for everyone burned by the fire of their own stories, freedom was enough. Years later, Atlanta had softened. The streets were the same, but the noise was different, less glitter, less chaos, more people building quietly, living carefully. The Frost scandal had become a myth now. Something the new generation of influencers mentioned in passing like an old ghost story. "Remember Jasmine Washington?" someone would say on a podcast, and another voice would laugh softly. "Yeah, she wrote that book that went viral. She's the one who told the truth." Truth. The word had followed Jasmine her whole life, but now it felt like peace rather than punishment. Her son, now 8, was bright and curious, with a smile that looked too much like Kirk's for her comfort sometimes. She never spoke badly of his father. When he asked about him, she'd answer simply, "He lives far away, but he's doing fine." She didn't want the boy to inherit the bitterness she had once carried. She lived just outside Atlanta now, in a quiet house with a garden she'd planted herself. She grew herbs, roses, and sometimes sat outside in the evenings writing letters she never sent to people she'd loved, people she'd lost, versions of herself she no longer recognized. One letter she always rewrote but never mailed was to Kirk. She didn't hate him anymore, but she didn't forgive him either. Forgiveness, she'd decided, was not about the other person, it was about not letting pain take up space where peace belonged. Rashida had become something of an Atlanta icon again. Her business empire had expanded across states, her podcast turned into a network, and her story was taught in business seminars about resilience. She never remarried, though people often asked. She'd smile and say, "Some of us are married to peace now." Her and Jasmine stayed in touch, quietly, without fanfare, two women who had once shared the same battlefield, now bound by mutual survival. Every year, they met for lunch at the same rooftop cafe. No cameras, no entourage, just 2 plates of food and the city below them. One afternoon, Jasmine said, "Do you ever think about what it would have been like if none of that happened?" Rashida thought for a moment and said, "No, because it did, and it made us who we are." Jasmine smiled faintly. "You really believe that?" Rashida shrugged. "Maybe not every day, but on the good ones, yeah." That same week, Kirk returned to Atlanta for the first time in years. Not for business, not for TV, just to see the city again. He drove through old neighborhoods, past Frost Bistro, long since sold and renamed. He stopped outside a park and sat in his car for a long time, staring at the swings swaying gently in the breeze. He thought about all the things he'd broken chasing the wrong kind of success. In the reflection of his car window, he saw a man aged by regret but softened by time. He didn't reach out to Jasmine. He didn't call Rashida. Some truths didn't need to be revisited, they just needed to rest. One evening, Jasmine was hosting a small community workshop for young women in media. She spoke about narrative control, about owning your story before someone else twists it. "You don't have to be perfect to tell the truth," she said. You just have to survive long enough to speak it. The room was silent. When the session ended, a girl approached her, maybe 19, nervous but determined. I watched that old reunion online. She said, you cried. And I remember thinking it's okay to break as long as you stand back up. I wanted to say thank you. Jasmine smiled, her eyes warm. That's all that matters, she said, standing back up. Outside, the evening air smelled of rain. She walked to her car, paused, and looked up at the skyline, the same one that had once watched her fall apart. Now it just shimmered, indifferent but beautiful. At home, her son was asleep when she arrived. She kissed his forehead, turned off the lamp, and sat by the window for a while. The phone on the table buzzed once on news notification she didn't open. She didn't need to. The world could spin on without her for a change. Rashida texted her later that night. Saw you trending again? This time it's for good reasons. Proud of you. Jasmine smiled and replied, finally. And far away, in Miami, Kirk stood on the sand watching the tide roll in. A small shell washed to his feet, and he bent to pick it up, turning it in his hand. For the first time, he didn't think of loss. He thought of peace. He whispered softly to himself, maybe this is what truth feels like when it's quiet. The waves answered in rhythm, steady and endless, and he let them. In Atlanta, lights blinked across the skyline as Jasmine fell asleep. Rashida planned her next project, and Kirk stared at the sea. No more scandals, no more lies, no more lies, no more noise, just 3 lives finally unchained from each other. Connected only by the same lesson that had taken years to learn. The truth had cost them everything, but in the end, it had given them something better, clarity. And in that clarity, there was no fame, no forgiveness, no apology left to make. Just peace. So now, after everything, the leaked papers, the crying cameras, the broken hearts, the storms that ripped through Atlanta, this is where it all ends. Or maybe it's where it begins again. The truth has been told, the lies have fallen apart, and the people who once lived inside the noise have finally stepped into something quieter, something real. But if you've watched this story unfold, if you've followed every twist, every tear, every headline, then you already know this wasn't just drama, it was a lesson. A lesson about how truth doesn't hide forever. A lesson about how pain can make people cruel, how fame can turn hearts into weapons, how silence can be heavier than any lie. And maybe, if you look close enough, it's also a reminder that no matter how deep you bury it, the truth always finds a way back to light. Think about Jasmine, sitting in front of those cameras years ago, shaking, her voice breaking, but still saying the words no one wanted to hear. Think about how they called her crazy, desperate, how they mocked her tears, how they said she'd fade away. And yet, she didn't. She stood through every storm, and now she stands taller than the lies ever did. That's what strength looks like. It doesn't come from winning. It comes from surviving. And think about Rashida. She built herself, lost herself, rebuilt again. She learned that loyalty can become a cage, and sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is walk away without needing to burn everything behind her. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need validation. She just needed peace, and she found it, not in the spotlight, but in the silence that came after. And yes, even Kirk, the man at the center of it all, he became the villain in his own story, but maybe he's still a man who finally learned to live without pretending. Because sometimes, punishment isn't a scandal, it's waking up every day knowing the world moved on, and you're still carrying the memories. But here's where it turns to you. Because stories like this aren't just about them, they're about us. Every one of us has buried a truth, denied something, protected someone who didn't deserve it, or stayed quiet when we should have spoken. We've all been Jasmine, trying to be heard. We've all been Rashida, holding on too long. And maybe, some of us have even been Kirk, realizing too late what we broke. The truth is, we live in a world that loves the performance but forgets the people. That's why stories like this matter. Because when you strip away the lights, the hashtags, the gossip, you're left with humans. Flawed, fragile, fighting to be seen. So if you've made it this far into this story, don't just watch it, feel it. Think about what it means to tell your own truth. Think about the secrets you've held so long they've started to feel like scars. Think about how many times you've said I'm fine when you weren't. And then remember, Jasmine, remember that standing in your truth might hurt, but staying silent will destroy you. The world will talk no matter what. People will twist, edit, and gossip, but your peace, your truth isn't for them. It's for you. And if you ever doubt that, look at Jasmine's story and remember, she lost everything they said she needed, and still, she won. So as this story closes, I want you to ask yourself, what would you do if the truth came knocking at your door? Would you open it? Or would you hide behind the curtain and wait for it to leave? Because truth doesn't go away. It waits, patiently, quietly, until you're ready to face it. And when you finally do, when you stop running, when you stop lying to yourself, that's when the real healing begins. Because it's not the world's approval that sets you free, it's the moment you stop needing it. That's what Jasmine learned. That's what Rashida learned. And maybe, somewhere in Miami, that's what Kirk's learning too. So here's what I want you to do right now: breathe. Let go of the noise. Stop scrolling for just a moment and think about what your truth looks like. Maybe it's messy, maybe it's painful, maybe it's something you've never said out loud, but it's yours, and that means it's powerful. If this story reminded you of something you've been holding inside, take this moment to release it. Write it down. Tell someone. Whisper it if you have to. Because every time you face the truth, you take back a piece of your freedom. And if you've been watching this whole series, following every chapter of Jasmine's journey from the leaked DNA papers to the tears, the reunion, the courtroom, and finally to peace, then don't just close this video and move on. Make it count. Because you're part of this too. Every view, every comment, every shared word, you helped bring her truth to light. Now, it's your turn. Your truth might not trend. It might not go viral, but it's still worth telling. Because truth isn't about the audience, it's about the mirror. So before this video ends, before the music fades and the credits roll, take one last look at what happened here. Not the scandal, not the lies, not the chaos. Look at the survival. Look at the women who refused to stay broken. Look at the lesson hiding behind all that noise. No matter how dark it gets, honesty will always rise. And if you believe that, if you felt something while watching Jasmine's story unfold, then show your support. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what truth means to you. Tell us what part of this story hit you hardest. Tell us what you've learned about strength, about pain, about starting over. Because stories like this live through you. When you comment, when you share, when you connect, you're not just part of the audience. You're part of the movement that says, no more silence, no more shame. So go ahead, comment. Truth always wins if you believe in Jasmine's strength. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Maybe it's a friend stuck in a lie. Maybe it's you trying to forgive yourself. Either way, let this be your sign. Remember, the story might end here, but the message doesn't. The truth doesn't die when the credits roll. It lives on in everyone brave enough to face it. And just like Jasmine, like Rashida, like everyone who's ever been broken but kept standing, your story isn't over yet either. So keep watching, keep growing, keep believing. Because one day, your truth will find its voice too. And when it does, it'll be louder than every lie that ever tried to silence it. Now go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories that remind you of your own strength, and comment below with your thoughts. This isn't just the end of Jasmine's story. It's the beginning of yours.